Okay, so I'll jump right in. I studied a Bachelor of Business in university. I spent 2 years in banking before I decided to quit my corporate job and start my first business. When I look back at my career, I realize I have a unique skill where I am able to go from one industry to another and learn the rules and regulations and ins and outs of that industry and build a business in that sector. So 5 years ago, I developed a postnatal supplement that cured postnatal depletion. So I actually saw a doctor that was prescribing supplements to women, all different vitamins and minerals that were helping women after they've given birth. And I saw an opportunity to, look at what he was prescribing and develop that into one pill, for example. And, if you look at the vitamins industry, it's heavily regulated. So that was quite exciting. And then after that, I also moved into infant formula, where we developed the world's first goat and sheep hybrid infant formula. And I worked closely with scientists in this company, and we were able to remove oil from the stage 3 formulation, which was a world first. And that formula was so much healthier for the baby and also our planet. I first learned about climate change while I was working in this infant formula business. I was sourcing ingredients, and it opened my eyes to deforestation and how companies were using products with palm oil. And that really fueled my curious mind into carbon capture. And, every news headline in 2020 was about carbon capture and how we need to capture emissions. So I kind of became obsessed about this problem and really set out to find a solution to help solve it.
Thank you. So, wow, already, we haven't even started and you've already been on a crazy journey from, vitamins to infant formula, and now you're in climate tech. Tell us more about the tech. Tell us more about that filter.
Yeah. So I guess not having a technical background was actually a very big advantage, because I was able to look at developing the technology with a different mindset, I guess. Traditionally, everyone uses science to develop technology, and I did the opposite. So I actually developed the technology, and then we're putting the science together. So Kapture's technology is quite disruptive in the carbon capture space. There's two parts to the technology. There is the hardware and the solvent. And the solvent is novel, and it's the world first. And no one in the world has used this solvent to capture CO2. So it's very exciting. And this solvent is non-toxic and non-hazardous. And it was actually developed by accident because I couldn't get access to toxic chemicals. So I was playing around with a lot of non-toxic chemicals. And at the time, I didn't realize how impactful it would be to be able to capture CO2 with a non-toxic and non-hazardous solvent, because what that means is we've created now a world first circular solution where customers on site can capture their CO2 and then dispose it off into soil. And it acts very similar to biochar, where the soil will lock away the CO2 permanently. So that's very exciting. And, our customers are excited because also, if you look at the hardware, traditionally deep tech is quite expensive, and our hardware is low capex, very low compared to any other carbon capture technology in the world. And then because we're not separating the gas or turning the CO2 that we've captured into a product, we then don't need any infrastructure. So we're not collecting the gas and then transporting it to a warehouse where you need to then separate the gas or then turn it into products. So that's also exciting because we've removed that whole side of capturing CO2 and then transporting it elsewhere, which also creates more emissions. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's extremely exciting, and how you've solved this problem by removing elements of the supply chain as well as for, targeting the problem itself. I want to come back to the tech in a moment, Raj, but, building a deep tech startup often requires strong technical foundations and technical expertise. And, you know, when I listen to you speak now about your journey from vitamins to infant formula to solvents for carbon capture, there's actually a thread through there. Like, you've actually been working in this space of working with chemicals and chemical supply for some time. But tell us a little bit from your side, your insights on how you navigated that transition from, say, a food and beverage application to becoming a deep tech, climate tech entrepreneur and making that transition into a climate tech application. It wouldn't seem that obvious, but somehow your journey led you, and your expertise led you there, without that sort of technical foundation traditionally, but still having some foundations in the space. So how did you navigate that transition?
Yeah, I think if you're really passionate about a particular subject, you just learn on the job and figure things out. Like, I was actually never a good student, but I'm really good at learning on the job and self-teaching myself all of like whatever I need to learn. So right before founding Kapture, I was working in a food tech startup for 10 months. It was actually super cool in food preservation technology, and it extends the shelf life of fresh produce. So, you know, there's an electrical wave that's emitted through the fresh produce that stops ice molecules from forming, and it delays the bacterial growth. And I actually learned all about this technology as well and the science behind it. And whilst in this job, I was working with engineers, and for 10 months, I would ask them questions daily. And I quickly learned a lot about capturing emissions, inventing technology, and the basics of engineering. And I also learned how our earth is out of balance and we need to add CO2 back into soil, for example, so that we're creating balance again, because that is why also climate change is happening. So, and the one thing I learned in this role was that, you know, to solve the climate crisis, engineers have the answers, and engineers are not entrepreneurs. And I realized there's a huge opportunity here, because if I could develop technology that can capture CO2, I'm an entrepreneur and I understand marketing, building a brand, as well as, you know, the technical side. Like, I had something truly special, and that's what really got me excited. And then to think that we could solve this huge problem was, you know, really exciting. And I guess really led to, like, Kapture is my life's work. And, you know, so I then left that startup once I had enough knowledge, and then I spent 2 years in R&D. So during this time, I read every book possible. I watched every single YouTube video on the internet. I read everything on the internet. I looked at other technologies that existed in the world, and I really understand carbon capture. Like, the engineers I work with now, they're surprised at how much I understand of the technical side. And I also put together a support group of PhD students at Melbourne University. So I would meet them on the weekends and ask them any questions I had, like while I was developing the tech as well. So I think it was a natural progression, like as you said, because I've gone from hospitality to infant formula, vitamins. I was also in this food tech company. So I've learned a lot along the way. And I think I just naturally can like dive into any industry and learn it. So that's how I've ended up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've really immersed yourself deeply into it to really understand it. Why is that important to you? Why is this important to you?
Well, you know, first of all, it's the first time in humanity that we have the opportunity to make a huge global impact, you know, help save humanity from climate change, and also contribute to this huge problem that we need to solve. So, you know, my personal mission is to make a huge impact in reducing CO2 emissions, reducing air pollution. You know, millions of people are dying from air pollution. So we can also play a huge role in improving human health. And then just inspire future generations, like showing females all around the world that, you know, it's possible for a non-technical co-founder or founder to build a deep tech company that will change the world. And I think that's really inspiring because, you know, as females, it's tough. Like, we are in a male-dominated space and it's tough to break through. So that's, all of those points are really important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that kind of message about you don't have to be an engineer or a scientist or come from a technical background to do something so impactful. Every touch point in your journey from banking and onwards has helped you to be here and do what you do now. You know, it's all that knowledge kind of aggregated, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think this is my purpose on this planet, and exactly like every single thing I have gone through, I've built knowledge to do this work. So
that's amazing. It's amazing that you have that purpose and that connection to purpose.
Yeah.
So many of us are trying to live that as well. I want to kind of take it a little bit more, I guess, on the startup side now, in terms of, you know, deep tech innovations often involve really significant upfront investment, and they take longer time horizons for commercializations. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you faced when you had to secure funding? How did you convince the first believers to support your vision? Particularly because you don't have, you didn't come from that technical background, despite your deep immersion in it, and you're a clearly excellent technical communicator. How did you get the first believers to support you and the funding for it?
So accelerators, I think, are really important in your early days. So for Kapture, we got into StartMate in January this year, and that really launched us. You know, it was our launching pad into the Australian market. We had access to the best mentors in Australia. So John Wood, Sally Ann Williams, and Eden from 5E Solar were on my team, and they provided so much great advice on how we should build this business and what are the most important things to focus on in the early days. You know, so they really made it clear it's strong to have it's important to have a strong vision for your company, building a strong team, and also validating science. So if you can kind of get those together, it really helps, I guess, mentors or angel investors believe in you and your vision. So I think that's really important. And then accelerators are number one, I think,
So this is great because, you talk about having sort of that foundational learning through an accelerator, having great mentors, and then validating the science, which is a tough one for a lot of deep tech companies. And, those deep tech solutions often involve complex iterations and refinements as you're validating your science. How, I guess, maybe describe for us what some of those pivotal milestones for you during your development process and your process of validating the science that shaped your direction.
Yeah, so for us, it was definitely initially we were focused on decarbonizing factories and trucks, and we didn't have product market fit, and we weren't getting any traction. So this was actually last year in July. And I had probably spent 3 to 4 months trying to speak to mentors, advisors, like even if you look at the climate salad community, Mick Lebinskas, I was chatting to him and just wasn't really getting anywhere. And then I actually met John Wood through Climate Salad in October last year. And he said to us, why don't you pivot to diesel generators? And then when we did that, everything fell into place and everyone was interested. But I must say, raising funds for deep tech companies is always going to be a challenge. And it's finding a balance of how can you prove your science in the cheapest possible way, because you just need to show some traction so that you can get investors interested. So
yeah, and I guess getting people interested, like you say, without the science or before the science, it's often that deep tech startups are faced with that skepticism and that resistance, due to the perceived risks. and some of the uncertainties that are associated with new technologies, and yours is a new technology, it's a world first technology. Tell us then a little bit, how did you build trust and that credibility in the market, and both with the customers and your potential customers moving forward in that face of skepticism and resistance?
Yeah. So once again, aligning myself with accelerator programs. So StartMate was a really big one for us. And then after that, we were involved with NERA. They selected 6 energy companies to pitch at the AOG Energy Conference. So I highly recommend doing lots of different, competitions or any opportunity you have to speak so that it builds your credibility. And then Climate Salad was a big one. And also Cicada, most recently, Tech 23 really helped build our profile as well. So it's just aligning yourself with credible mentors and accelerators in the early days. It helps build your reputation and people can trust you. And then also, obviously, if you're part of a university or CSRO is also a good way to help build that credibility in the market.
Yeah, so it's, would you say it's around that idea of, getting other people to carry your message forward, right?
Yeah.
And how you get that message networked and radiated outwards, right?
Yeah.
Raj, I want to flip a little bit to the climate tech sector itself. This is a sector that I know you must feel it. It is rapidly evolving from one day to the next. There's, I guess, new opportunities, new messages coming out, advancements in renewable energy, advancements in carbon capture, and lots of other areas. In this very volatile and state of flux of climate tech and the climate tech sector, how does Kapture stay ahead of the curve, and ensure that your innovation stays relevant in this, it's starting to get really competitive and really dynamic? How do you absorb all of that volatility and flux to stay relevant and ahead of the curve?
Yeah. So I think one important thing to note, and any deep tech founder can relate, especially when you have novel technology. Also, and when you're trying to raise funds, first of all, I just wanted to cover this point. It's important to find a balance because you don't want to share too much of your secret sauce, but then it's also hard for investors to raise if they don't have access to the secret sauce. So that was a challenge for us in terms of raising funding. And then we needed to decide because, that's also a key risk. Like some investors are associated with universities or CSRO, and it's important to kind of define or, know how much risk you're prepared to take as well when you're exposing your IP to investors. So for us, the path we've taken is to align ourselves with strategic partners and corporates, because this will allow us to move fast and build our brand quickly, and also, help people notice us if we're aligning ourselves with big brands. So our customer pilots in Q1 2024 are with 2 global names. And what that will do is, off the back of a successful pilot, we will then go public with our impact, our results, and it will really fast track our business, to success and scale. And what it also does is allow us to really understand the customer's needs. So now we're already talking to our customers and building and developing new products, and also continuing our innovation, I guess, and developing our technology to suit their needs. So we're listening to them. It's like, what data do you need to collect, like all the bits and pieces, so that we have a product that's ready to go once we, have successful pilots and are ready to scale. Because anyone that comes behind us won't have access to these customers and the type of scale we can achieve by being first to market.
Yeah, and it's so important to have that first mover advantage. And I really like your approach there on getting embedded into your customer really early. And I wonder then, in everything you've said around, building trust and credibility, and validating your science. How, I guess, making that leap from lab to market, from lab to customer, how did you, I guess, what were some of the obstacles that you faced? What are some of the challenges or failures you encountered in making that leap? And how did you overcome them? How did you see them? How did you pivot?
So we're quite lucky in this sense because our technology is easy to scale up. So I understand other deep technologies do have challenges in scaling up. So we haven't faced any problems or challenges, but I think the only challenge that I can talk about is we don't have access to labs because we weren't part of a university or a CSRO. And recently investors have, I've noticed that investors and customers, in order for us to build a global company that's really going to change the world, we also need to validate and show science that is world-class. So we've had to make the decision to partner with an R&D company that has labs and facilities. So we are actually moving that side of our business to Sydney, and I'm really excited to work with these partners that are experts in CO2 capture, also commercializing technology, and really understand not only TRL but CRL, because that's really important when you are trying to commercialize.
That is a really fascinating pivot there in your business, is to go and partner with an R&D partner for that particular part so that you get the credible and the poignant science that you need. And you've mentioned a couple of times around partnerships with customers, right mentors, etc. I'm interested to dig a little bit into that with you, Raj, in that, deep tech startups require a unique set of skills and resources a lot of the time. And you've made this strategic decision to partner with R&D. Tell us a little bit more, maybe some of the other key operational or strategic decisions you've had to make to scale your business, and what you learned along the way to do that. Similarly to how you've come to this point of it's time for us to partner for R&D. What's some of the other strategic decisions to help build your skills and resources?
Yeah, so we are running on a lean budget like any startup. So, every decision we make, we think about it very carefully, and it's kind of like, how can we, every dollar we spend, how can we maximize the return and get a great result out of the money we are spending? So, partnering with this R&D company means we don't need millions to build a lab or a facility to run our pilots. We can just use their existing setup, get the results we need, and move on. It also means we aren't left with the teams that would be working on the project right now, because in 2024, when we start scaling, we need a different set of engineers that have experience to be out on field and scaling up pilots. So it's a real advantage, I guess, for us, but we're also in a very different situation because I'm probably the 1% where technology didn't come out of university or CSRO. So that's why I've had to make these decisions so that, it's like pivot around the traditional model, I guess, to help commercialize our technology. But my biggest learnings have also come from other founders, and just I think it's really good to make friends with other founders and listen to the mistakes they've made, try not to repeat them. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing so far.
Yeah, I really like how you said using different engineers at different times in your development and your progress, and how you tap into those resources through partnerships. But also how you've had to make tough decisions on your own, because you haven't had that sort of big backup from universities, etc. So how do you then stay resilient, in the face of that kind of pressure? How do you stay focused on your long-term vision and stay resilient in this sort of situation?
Yeah, I think I'm just built really tough because there is lots of rejection. there's so much rejection, and especially for me, there was so much of me having to prove myself, so many barriers I had to overcome. But if you believe in your vision so much, and if you really think that you can change the world, I think nothing will stop you or get in your way. And I think the one thing I do really well is, like, you have to be open to criticism and feedback. And any feedback I get, I take on board and pivot and make changes. Like recently, we don't have a big team, and I know, like, we're looking to hire a CTO and a COO, and we need a strong founding team. It can't just be myself. So I am now, we are starting to look for these roles, and it's just really adapting to the feedback, because you don't waste time. Like, if people give you feedback, it's for a reason, and don't take offense. I think that's the best way to go about it. But as soon as I joined StartMate, it changed everything. It really helped build credibility, and I have a lot of supporters behind me, which I feel really grateful for. But you also have to work hard to build that reputation and trust in everyone supporting you as well.
Yeah, you're so calm when you say it, but I know that when you say you've got to keep driving your vision, there's a lot of passion behind that and a lot of energy behind that. And it's often, portrayed a little bit as a solitary journey, the founder journey, when you kick this off, isn't it? And so, you've mentioned several times the importance of good mentors and advisors and a team that helps you navigate that. I want to look back on your journey and hear from you, I guess, some of those most fulfilling moments over, since you've started not that long ago, right? Kapture is not that old, is it?
Yeah.
Tell us.
It really started in January, so it's quite crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's whirlwind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, we've been in so many events and, like, nominated for awards or this and that, and sometimes people think we're quite far advanced, but really we've only just gotten started. So it's also finding that balance, because I feel like we are getting a lot of traction. But most recently, actually, we just got selected out of 70,000 startups in the world by Plug and Play Ventures in the US, and we have just joined their accelerator. So they selected 12 companies in different verticals, so not just energy, to go into a 3-month accelerator. And what's very exciting about this is they have over 500 corporate partners in the world that we can pilot with and really help scale our business. So that is very exciting. But besides that, Tech 23 was incredible. Like, the things you guys are doing at Cicada to support founders is amazing, and we need to do that for all founders and really highlight, like, the great work that everyone's doing. StartMate was obviously a big one for us and the start of our journey, and Climate Salad's recent GTP program has been great as well, just for exposure and just helping, with various contacts as well. And securing our pilots with 2 of the world's biggest companies is also a huge highlight for us.
Yeah, that's mega. It's great to see that you've leaned right into the resources available in our country to support deep tech. You've touched on so many good programs and good opportunities there, and that's really helped you can see that that's really helped to accelerate Kapture forward, and I'm really pleased to see that. And congratulations on the partnership with the 2 big corporates and getting in on Plug and Play. That's amazing. This is the leap, international leap now.
Yeah.
I want to kind of quickly wrap up so we can open up to questions from the audience and the members. Just really your perspective, Raj. You've been deeply immersed in this now for a while. Tell us your perspective on what are some of the key opportunities, some of the challenges for the climate tech sector in general. What do you see in the future coming up?
Yeah, I think we're just getting started. So it's very exciting. If anyone out there has great ideas to help solve a part of the problem, I highly recommend, because this will become the biggest industry in the world. And I think in the next 5 years, the urgency to adopt solutions will become like, governments will get involved. It will really be mandated for everyone to make change and adopt the solutions. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to address climate change and make a difference. So that's really exciting. The market growth is just, it's really mind-blowing at the market opportunity that we all can tap into with our innovation. And, just any innovation that's developed to help solve the climate crisis can have a wide-reaching effect. So it's really exciting. And then there'll be lots of new jobs as well. So I think they're the key opportunities. And then the challenges, capital is always a big one, because right now, whilst people are starting to jump on the climate bandwagon, it's still early days. So just really finding that balance. And then even with, regulatory kind of mandates, governments are in the middle of figuring out, what they're going to mandate or which technologies will need to be adopted. So I think we'll need to just kind of, over the next few years, ride the wave, and then things are going to get really exciting. And then like another big challenge is actually, if you look at third world countries, they have a lot of competing priorities for climate change, because not only are they dealing with climate change, they also have to deal with poverty, education, and so many other factors. So it's not so easy, and it's important to understand each country is so different with their challenges and rules and regulations and advancements in adoption. So it's really, identifying like what is the right market for your technology as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that last point up, because it's so true. Markets aren't all the same, right? And when you're building your deep tech, you've got to really understand where you're going into.
Yeah, definitely.
Raj, I'm sure we could keep on chatting. It's been really amazing to speak to you and hear your story and where you've come from and what you've achieved and where you're going. It's you're very calm, but there's so much excitement and energy behind it. I would love to open up to the audience now to ask some questions. I've got a couple of questions here on the chat. I'll read them out. I'll read them out to you. So Raj, thank you for taking time today. Really great to hear your journey and passion in this space. After doing the research, how did you decide on the problem you wanted to solve to be carbon capture, and specifically in the diesel generator space? And how did you determine what the correct solution was for the problem?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this earlier. So I actually found the solution first and then defined the market after that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a real kind of sort of unusual way to approach it, isn't it? So it's and I think that it sort of stems a little bit from your, again, as I mentioned, your work with vitamins, your work with infant formula, that leading into solvents. Like there was actually a link, a thread that pulled you in.
Because even with formula and vitamins, you develop things in the same way. And actually the solvent was a very similar way on how it was developed. And just to add one more point, our technology is suitable and can be adopted by any sector that uses a exhaust. So we can actually move into shipping, and also decarbonize heavy trucks, for example. So it was just that diesel generators currently have no solution in the world, and corporates need them for backup power. It's a critical source of backup power, so that's why we've kind of jumped straight into that. And diesel generators are on land, so it's easy to kind of proof out the concept before we move into other sectors.
And that makes a lot of sense. That was the guidance from your mentor, is okay, you see the vision, but you've got to start somewhere. And as you've got to start somewhere, that's going to help you validate the science. Another question, has Kapture pursued any patents for your technology?
Yes, we have. So it's both over the hardware and the solvent. And what I didn't mention earlier is actually, as we are now optimizing the technology, we will be using AI to really come up with lots of different combinations of the solvent, and then we'll file patents over all the combinations so that we can own the rights to the solvent. Yeah.
Amazing. So getting into that digital validation piece a little more before building.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this R&D company that we're working with, because they have access to AI and, you know, lots of expensive equipment. Yeah.
Amazing. Another question, how much back pressure does the Kapture system add to the generator? A bit of a technical one.
So very minimal, and this was really important because customers don't want back pressure. So yeah, the technology is designed in a way where there's no back pressure. And actually, another beauty of the technology is that it kickstarts straight away. So traditional carbon capture takes time to warm up, and it can't stop and start. Like once it's on, it needs to run continuously. So our technology can work for 10 minutes or 12 hours, for example. So it works in stop and start scenarios, which is really good, because some customers that use battery, for example, they still need to charge the battery from their diesel generator, and it might be turned on for 10 minutes. So they are still meeting their net zero targets if our technology is on their generator.
So just a little bit more so we can visualize it. Does the hardware connect to the exhaust of the diesel generator, captures the carbon, and then the filter, then you dispose of it in an environmentally safe way?
Yeah,
that's the visual of it.
Yeah, so the gas passes through the technology, interacts with the solvent, and the emissions are captured in one step. And then that process keeps repeating. So mostly clean air is emitted through the outlet exhaust. And once the chemical solution is exhausted, the user then disposes it off into soil. Yeah. So there's one question about the R&D partner. Right now it's confidential, but we will share it on link. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and we will be announcing that at a later date. Yeah.
Fantastic. And also, I mean, this is all about getting to net zero, Raj. And, you know, the conversations you're having, I guess I'm going to ask a question, the conversations you're having with your customer partners, is it a net zero conversation, or is it a environment conversation, or what kind of conversation, or is it an economic conversation? Is it a competitive advantage conversation? What kind of conversation is it?
Yeah. So yeah, customers are looking to reduce their diesel emissions. So currently there's no solution in the world, and they thought that they'd never be able to reduce emissions from their diesel generators. So they're very excited at the impact that we can have. So it's more around reducing their emissions because they have set targets and they need to reduce their emissions. So our first target is to reduce up to 60 to 70% of the CO2 coming out of the exhaust. And then after that, we'll push it as far as we can. But, you know, toxic chemicals can capture 90%, like they don't even do 100%. So, you know, I think if we reach between 80 to 90%, that will be amazing. So that's the main conversation. And then in terms of cost, our customers are really happy because our CapEx is very low, so they can adopt the technology across their diesel generator fleet without huge upfront investment, and they're very happy to pay for the solvent ongoing. And our early stage testing reflects that our cost to capture CO2 is disruptive, like a very competitive compared to anything in the world. So that's also very exciting.
I wonder if your background in banking actually has also played a big role in your ability to have this economic and cost conversation as well. Raj, we're at time, and I just want to say again a very deep thank you for joining us and sharing your story with us today. I am in awe of what you're doing, and your passion and your drive to do this, and I really believe in your technology. So yeah, whatever Cicada can do to back you up, we're always there. Thank you so much, Raj.